Hello everybody and welcome back to Us Bites, and A Dice movie reviews. Now y'all, today we're going to be doing something a little bit different. I don't even think I've done like a review of a TV show here yet, but this one beckons for me to do it. Now we're also going to be doing a couple of little things a bit different, so I'm just going to explain here. So first of all, I usually try and keep these very concise, very down to a certain amount of time, yada yada yada, but we're not doing that for this. So what we're going to do is I'm just going to kind of talk about some overall thoughts. Now I have made notes and they are off to the side here, but I'm just going to kind of have a discussion on different aspects of the show, what I think about it. That being said, the entire video that you're watching is a major spoiler alert, okay? The only thing pre-spoiler alert I will say is if you have not watched this series, you have to watch it. I highly suggest having already watched the previous seasons to this, but if you haven't, that's fine. You can get into this one, but it will not hit the same as if you have been like, you know, already invested in Dexter at one point, okay? So that being said, there's that. We are entering into spoiler alerts. This video is assuming you have watched episodes 1 through 6. It's on Showtime, so we're going to be talking about all different aspects of that. So without any more being said, let's go ahead and jump on in. Okay, so I'm talking 2-second recap here, y'all. Dexter Morgan was on the homicide department. He was like the blood splatter kind of person or whatever down in Miami, Florida. That's what we saw through the previous seasons. Now, we left off there with some unanswered questions a little bit, but they've already been answered. But regardless, you know, Dexter is a serial killer, and he has been hiding out. He ended up in New York is where we meet up with him in this season. So it's called The New Blood, and there's a lot of people from the previous seasons, and there's a lot of brand new stuff going on, and it has kept me on the edge of my seat. So like I said, I'm going to kind of go down a list of notes that I've made throughout here. Again, if you're still watching right now, just know this is major spoiler alert, so don't even be all up in it if you don't want to know. So first thing we're going to talk about is Deb. Now, Deb is his sister. Now, for those who have seen the previous episodes, you will know that he killed his sister. Now, he got away with it, obviously, that's how we're here, but she, like, is his voice in this new season. So I felt a couple of different ways about it, because number one, yes, I was glad to see Deb back. I think that the comparison of him versus her is a good, you know, contrast to have present, right? Now that whole thing that we went through in the beginning, or in the first episodes, the first seasons that we've already seen, is, you know, the whole thing of he's a serial killer. They are on the police force. His sister is essentially trying to catch him, but not knowing that it's him she's trying to catch. That whole thing going, right? So with Deb in this now, and kind of being like, oh wow, it's like, you know, her spirit, if you will. Basically, Dexter hears voices, and his voice is Deb. She still comes at him. There's still that complexity there, and at times it's hard to forget or hard to remember that it's like, that's not really Deb, that's like her, you know, whatever, it's in his head or whatever, that guilt. And so it does add another layer of humanness to him. But also, one thing that I saw in episode 6 that I haven't really seen yet is when, and we'll get to this again, but when she says something to him about, we've got to take care of Molly, and if you're not familiar with this, you'll know what I'm talking about in a minute. And I was like, oh, interesting, now even Deb is trying to help him cover up or whatever. But I guess overall you could say that you know, technically is what she's still doing, but it's not really her, right? It's this, you know, figment of his imagination, which kind of plays into the whole crazy aspect for him. But nonetheless, I do like that they brought her back. I do like that she is like this voice of reason that comes in that's like, look, this is the reality of this, because it's easy to forget, right? We get wrapped up in Dexter and the whole 9 yards, and again, he's not Dexter technically in this, he's Jim, but whatever. So that being said, I like her presence in the film, in the movies, oh my god, in the TV show, and I like what her character is doing. Yeah, she's a little bit extra at times, but she was extra to begin with, right? So I also like that we don't have to deal with her as much. It's just when Dexter is having these like flashbacks and these like conversations to himself that she becomes prevalent. Of course, we would expect her to be angry. That's, I mean, he killed her, for God's sakes, right? But also another thing that I think it does well is in showing that she's angry at him, but yet she still loves him. I mean, think of all these people who we've seen in real life that deal with serial killers and people like that, like their family members, whatever, and that complexity of this might have been like a serial killer to everybody else, but it was my dad. You know what I'm saying? So like, or my brother or whatever. So people can be two things at once and to two different things to different people, whatever. So I think it portrays that really well. Now, let me go down my list right here. Let's go ahead and just jump right on into Harrison coming back. Y'all, when that happened, I was like, oh my God. Okay, so Harrison is Dexter's, son from the previous seasons. He's all grown up now. He has found his way up to New York. He found Dexter. And he's kind of keeping the secret because there's that whole thing of Dexter being like, well, I don't know if he's going to remember and da-da-da-da-da. But then we start to see that Harrison has a dark passenger too. Now, as I was watching the episodes come out, right, this is, okay, and I'm going to go ahead and just give a theory here. I'm so curious to see what y'all think about this. Okay, so I think that, yes, Harrison has a dark passenger. He inherited this from his father. There's that evil aspect to him. He's already tried attacking that one kid with a razor blade and blamed it or whatever. Now, I just watched episode 6 like a few minutes ago and saw where he broke the wrestler's arm. And I was like, oh my God, okay. So the dark passenger is present. Now, this is what I think is interesting. So, first of all, the question to y'all, do we think that Harrison will end up killing Dexter at some point and just becoming the new Dexter, if you will, the new blood? You see what I'm saying? Part of me feels like something will happen to the storyline of Dexter where Harrison becomes more involved in it, right? Okay, because here's another duality going on with it. Okay, so, Dexter was growing up and basically it's like his dad was teaching him how to be a killer, right? And how to be a human and get away with it and all this type of stuff or whatever. Okay, so then Dexter is not wanting Harrison to be like that. So he's trying to almost expose him or something or keep a lid on it. He also has Deb there, that other voice. But then also remember Matt's dad. Matt is the guy who Dexter kills in the beginning. His father, I cannot think of the name right now. Let me see if it's in my notes. No, oh my God. Okay, we're just gonna move on. But if you've watched it, which I'm assuming you have, you know who I'm talking about. So Matt's father. Okay, so in the wrestling, episode 6, the wrestling match, where he comes in there, now remember, he's already had the confrontation with Dexter at his kill cabin, right? So he has the whole thing where he's urging Harrison on to hurt the wrestler, basically, and like take that anger out and da-da-da-da-da, and Harrison like goes ballistic, right? And there's that whole thing toward the end between those two. I think that there's this duality going on because really what it is Dexter is like the good serial killer. He's the vigilante. He's the Batman. And these other people like Matt's dad is just like this evil serial killer, right? So it's almost like you have this force of two serial killers trying to mold Harrison. And it's like, will he go to the dark side, the evil side, the whatever? I'm trying to like pull a little bit of Star Wars in here too. You know what I'm saying? So which way is he going to end up being? Now, I'm not trying to say that because, Derek or Dexter is a, he's killing bad people, that makes it okay to kill. Obviously not. But there's that, okay? So let me go down my list, and then I'm going to be tying a lot of this in here. So let me talk about some parts, and I was like, oh my God, oh my God. So when Harrison went to the party and got drunk and spilled the tea on his father, and then it all came out that his girlfriend, Dexter's girlfriend, found out that he was Dexter, I was like, oh my God, how do you come back from that? How do you come back from that? When she went to the conference and saw Batista, I was like, I can't handle this. I can't handle this. But it also answered a question for us that, okay, the cops, they left off not thinking it was Dexter, obviously thinking he was dead, right? So there's all that going on. And in this episode, the one I just watched, 6, we're starting to see this all kind of figure itself out. His girlfriend, Dexter's girlfriend, the cop, she finds out that, that's Dexter, that's his real name. He gives the excuse. It's kind of interesting, but nonetheless, that this is sitting on very thin ice, because she's going to end up talking to Batista again and making all these connections, right? Now, I'm just going to look over to my notes real quick. So let's talk about the aspect of Dexter dating a cop in general. Okay, so at first I was like, how are they going to frame the story, right? Like, how are they going to sell it to us? And at first, in the very beginning, when we didn't know much, I was like, oh, of course he's dating a cop. Like, he has to be in on what's going on. It's almost like they kind of aligned him to be in the same situation, to have insider knowledge as to what's taking place as far as the investigations go, yada, yada, yada. It's like the Dexter formula, right? And so I was kind of like, but in a sense, I also feel like she's kind of like the other Deb, you know what I mean? Like the good person, she's so good, why is she with Dexter? He's just gonna hurt her. Kind of like the voice of reason that Deb brings. So at first I was like, really, can we do a little bit better than that? But seeing the way that the writers and whoever the directors have utilized the device of him dating a cop and how it skates on thin ice so much, I'm just like, oh my God, the anxiety from it is too much, and I am here for it now. So now I don't any longer, at least up to episode 6, feel like it was a cheesy thing or whatever. Okay, let's also talk about the podcast with Molly and the Mary effing Kill podcast that she does and the integration into it. Okay, so I don't know how many people out there have seen Only Murders in the Building. Please let me know in the comments if you have, because I was glued to that. These shows that are incorporating, and it makes sense because they almost have to when you're talking about crime stuff, because the podcast, YouTube, all that is so prevalent in true crime now because it's such a huge consumption for people to, watch and listen to, whatever. So the fact that they brought that in at first, I was like, oh, here we go. But again, now the way they're utilizing it, I'm like, this makes perfect sense. This is the norm for podcasters and people to be coming in on these towns. Now, again, it is adding an entire other layer of anxiety because I'm just like, oh my God, this girl is going to find out about Dexter, right? Now, let's fast forward to episode 6 where she confronts Matt's dad. They find out that Matt's dad is lying about Matt being in Vegas or wherever, and she's going to go to his cabin, and Dexter records their conversation. He follows her. So here's my thing with that. You 100% know that now Matt's dad, the serial killer of the show, and we'll talk about that in a second, he has to know that Dexter knows. There's no reason Dexter should have been at that house, right? And gone down in there. I mean, that was huge. And the fact that he was like, well, no, let's go in there and look. Dexter's not stupid. You already heard him say, he's like, that's the serial killer, right? So let's talk about Matt's dad for a second. The fact that, I guess, I'm not trying to be like, yeah, I guess that, but I was looking at the eyes, and who knows if it was the same actor, but I was like, he's the serial killer a few episodes ago. I was like, it's him, something's off. His eyes look the same as the guy with the mask on that was shooting the girl. So the dynamic of there's always a serial killer around that they're also searching for. I like the layers of the story, and now I just feel like it took several episodes to really get in depth with it. It's been like a back burner story, right? And I was actually shocked that Matt's dad was bringing the podcaster out there to kill her, but what else was he going to do? She found out his secret and confronted him. And just like Dexter, you're seeing these two killers operate, but just differently. She could destroy everyone's world. It would not take much for her to do some digging and figure out who Dexter really is. And that's all that has to happen. All that has to happen is that to come forward and know how much death Dexter was truly around, for everyone to be like, oh, what? So there's that. So again, the use of the podcast in the show, it was kind of, I was like, at first I was like, but again, seeing the way they did it, I love the anxiety that it has added. Okay, so those are like really quickly kind of my stream of thoughts about the show, about the dynamics of it. First of all, and let me say this too, I love that it's taking place what seems to be around Christmas time. It's winter. I think they dropped the show at the perfect time. I think the title, The New Blood, is just amazing because it's like, okay, it's referring to a lot of things, right? Because remember, Dexter kind of rekindled his whole situation. He was up there, he was like doing his routine, and then he got thrown off, and now he's right back in this very tangled web, right? So that part, I'm just like, oh my God, here we are. I'm not gonna lie, y'all. I mean, I signed up for Showtime over this, okay? And I'm just like gladly paying $10 a month or whatever it is for it, and literally look forward to Sundays. I'm just like, oh my God, I can't wait. I absolutely love the Dexter show. I love every bit of it. I love Dexter. I think he's amazing. Even though I know he kills people, there's just something I'm like, he's such a likable serial killer. But couldn't they say that about many of them? And I'm not somebody who's gonna like fanboy or fangirl, whatever you want to call it, over real life serial killers. Like, I'm not like, I'm gonna write something. I'm just not into that. You know what I'm saying? But Dexter, for a fictional serial killer, I'm like, oh my God. So my biggest questions are, number one, do we think that Dexter's either going to get caught or that his son's going to take him out? Or do we think that he's going to turn his son in? There's going to be some dynamic with there. I just really feel like the show is leading up to something of good versus evil, but it's all still evil because they're all still killers, right? But I do think that Harrison will either completely go over to the dark passenger side or something else will happen. Who knows? I mean, maybe Dexter gets pushed out and then the other guy takes over, but the show Dexter wouldn't be Dexter without Dexter. You know what I'm saying? So I can't imagine someone else just completely taking over. Anyways, those are my thoughts on it. Drop your thoughts on it, y'all. I'm dying to hear what y'all think about the show. Let me know what your theories are. Let me know everything about that. And that's it. Until next time, until my next movie binge, we'll meet back here.